Oops. All right, everyone. A few notes. I realized it's small, so I'm going to read them out to you. One, GitHub Pages is down. So if you're trying to push something onto GitHub Pages, even if it used to exist, if you push something new, it's going to give you like GitHub Pages not found. So once someone notices it's back up, we'll put it on Slack. But just so you know, GitHub Pages is down today. Second, when you're working on your code, one of the reasons you want to put it on GitHub Pages is, one, so you don't lose it, GitHub, so you don't lose it. Two, so you can actually test it on your mobile device. A lot of people are just using the inspector, and the inspector is great, but the inspector can also be a little buggy. One thing the inspector does is it shows you the code even if you're missing the, let me see if I can find it. Let me just try doing it right here. That doesn't have it on here. It's not exactly right, but remember this line, the content width equals device width? If you're missing that line, it won't actually work on a phone. When it's on a server, it's probably going to just return the default look no matter what that is. So make sure that in your HTML header section, you find that tag that says media, return my media size. You can either Google it or you can even go to my site, view page source, copy paste. Boom. Check your site on at least 2 different browsers. If you check your site on 2 different browsers and it looks good, and then it looks really bad on a 3rd browser, you will tell us that. Check it. I don't expect you to check on multiple operating systems. All right, although to be honest, when you're on your phone, you probably are. But I'm not expecting like Windows and Mac or anything like that. So the homework is due on Sunday, and we're not giving any extensions because, to be honest, this needs to go away. All right, it needs to be done, it needs to go away. However, I am giving one pseudo extension. Part of your portfolio is to include a write-up, and the better your write-up, the easier it is for us to grade. So when you go into the assignment, you're going to upload your URL, and we want your a link to your write-up in the comments. So maybe you're doing the Google Doc, or we're not going to be checking that until after 11:14. So you can change your write-up. All right, you can even later add in the comments, here's my write-up. But code is frozen on Sunday. We'll be going through github.com. It's 10% off per day if you go in and change your code. But I did want to say, I'd rather let you just, I know people are going to be, I'd rather have the write-up. To be honest, it'd be nice if you could reflect and be like, wow, I did that. All right, I got that to work, yes. Okay. Discussion this week is a Q&A, which cracked me up because I did the same thing for the undergrads, and they thought it was like a Q&A about the GSI's like hopes and dreams or something like that. No, it's a Q&A about this or any homework, the class. Now, the reason we called it a Q&A and not like office hours is because you end up hitting like 2 people. Right? You want to hit as many as you can, and a lot of people have the same question over and over and over again. So we're going to be putting it via Google Doc. In discussion, you'll get a link to a Google Doc, and the GSS will just like go to, oh, hey, here's a question. Let me talk about things we've seen here. I can tell you, though, actually, I'm going to write it over here. Who here is using Grid? Anyone? Yeah. Probably more than you need to, but that's okay. So, blah, 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 blah. I can't remember. So a lot of of people have been setting up their mobile just right to be a single column, but their images are still way too big. Right? This happens a lot. So what I'm highly recommending to people if they have this problem is this. By default, if you don't add any styling to your images, it's going to be as big as the file system says it is. Okay? So when I say .gallery image with 100%, it's not saying be your whole 100% beautiful self. It's saying, oh, you have a parent. Right? In this case, the parent is your nice little grid. It says, do not take up more space than however wide your column is. Okay? If you're using flex, it would be a little different because you probably don't want it to be all. In that case, you might say, for your default mobile view, it's going to be 100%, but then in another mobile view, it's going to be like 50%, not 50, 45%, and then another one 20-ish%. Yes?
How do you get it to cut off below, like, you're saying, like, row, whatever, how do you get it to expand to the width of 100% and then just stop? So here's the half my face with the whole face.
Right. So this is a really good question, because pictures are a pain, right? So width 100% works really well. Height 100% never works unless things have a specific height on them. And so you have a few options. One, some people have actually been going into like Paint or whatever imaging software they have, and they hard code it to be the same size. That's easier than CSS. You can also, if you're using the overflow hidden, that will cut off underneath. All right. And then what some people are actually doing, and there's reasons for doing this and not, they actually have multiple versions of the same picture, and they show one picture on each view. So where you might see that is, have you ever been on, I don't know, Facebook? I know no one else uses Facebook, but like when someone posts a picture of Facebook and it just gets cropped at the most inappropriate dimensions, right? And you're like, oh, you know. So some people are actually using different pictures, particularly for the parallax, and using a different picture for each one. But that typically only happens when it's a person, so you don't like get, hey, here's me, you know, here's me. But for the height, it's a lot harder. The other thing you can play with that doesn't always work is there's this is usually just for background images. You can use contain. And I'm pretty sure that's only going to work for background images. So your best bet is if you're actually doing grid, I never use rows. Some people do. If you want to, you can, because rows just fall in naturally. There's no need to specify how many rows you want unless you're doubling stuff over. Like in the homework, we wanted things to be on top of each other. Then you'd use rows to say, I want these both to be on the same row. I never specify rows because by default it just goes down to the next one. If anyone currently is looking at their page and their footer is oddly hanging out like in the middle of their screen, I've been finding it's because they said, oh, put it on this particular row. If your HTML goes in the order you expect it to go, it should go. But the overflow, the other, to be honest, real life trick people do a lot is when you're, particularly if you have a gallery, try to make sure the ones that are about the same dimensions are next to each other. If you have 3 really tall pictures, put them all together at the bottom or things like that. Yes?
So what if the picture is like too small? Does like the previous method we just mentioned will be suitable?
So if one picture is smaller than the other one, all you can really do with width is it's gonna skew it. But here, real importantly, just we don't want to see. I should not anywhere in your code, in your HTML code, I should never see width equals. I should not in your HTML code see width equals anywhere. A lot of people are kind of hard coding their image widths inside the HTML. If you're doing that, it's okay. Just cut it and paste it and put it in your CSS. All right. So, but yeah, if one's smaller, all you can really do is CSS isn't the best place to work on it because it's going to skew. Yes?
A problem I I've encountered is that I'm mostly using TIFF files for my images,
Okay.
and I find that they're not loading on most browsers. And I don't really know how to alter that because I kind of need to use the TIFF images for the nature of my project.
Can you Google that while I'm talking for a little bit? It's .tiff, right?
Actually, it's just format
Oh,
of my files
okay.
for some reason.
Just do a little Google search and we'll come take a look at some point, yeah. Oh, and don't forget, okay, don't forget, if your picture isn't showing up, if like just one picture or something isn't showing up, double check those file extensions. Alright, it's probably in uppercase or lowercase or .jpeg. And is anyone using the command line to push to Git? Just a quick note, if you're using the command line, it doesn't recognize it as a change in the file if all you did was change the file case. If you rename a file and just change the case and then try to push it, it's like, no, it's all the same. Yeah, okay.
So this is sort of coming back to cross-browser compatibility. If, hypothetically speaking, our site looks great on like Firefox and Chrome and not on Safari, is that okay?
So what you would want to do, because Safari is a pretty big one, ask about adding the prefixes. Because the Safari does have some prefixes. And which editor are you using? Atom? Okay. Is there a built-in prefix around Atom, do you know? I know there's in Sublime, but you know. Okay. So there's a site called caniuse.com.
Okay.
Actually, no, it's not even that one. Let me go here for a second. The site I'm going to is called cssgenerator.com. And hopefully it'll work. Yep. Nope. Okay. All right, so I'm going to click on, this is the worst interface I think ever. Choose something. Yeah. Okay, so I go over here, and let's say I want to do, for instance, border radius. And I'm just going to pick 10, 50, 25, 45. If there's something you know you want to use and you put it in here, it'll show you which prefixes you need to add. So like WebKit border radius. So Safari I'm Googling Safari browser prefix. So if you don't see very many WebKits in your code, we'll want to look for that. But if you don't want to know there are things you can do in Atom or Sublime that you can actually run a tool where you'll go in and boom, add all your prefixes. Okay, so, question?
Yes. Say I was overly ambitious in my my plan that I sent you. Do I have to ask permission for any major changes to that plan?
So as long as what you hand in ends up being fine, we're probably gonna be okay with that. Where we really have problems is when people hand in things much less ambitious that don't do any of the requirements, right? So people who are overly ambitious, there aren't too many, but the big problem is when people come to us like, I'm really having trouble, and we look and what they're working on looks nothing like what they proposed. It looks oddly like the site of the 4 people next to them. Right? That's when we have a problem. We go back and we're like, yeah, your portfolio didn't really match. Draft 2, we might take a point or 2. All right, so on the first day of JavaScript, on the slide it said, try not to keep working on your HTML and your CSS at the detriment of learning JavaScript. Which is one of the reasons I hesitated doing that extra week. I know you needed it, but I also know we need to go on and do the JavaScript and the jQuery. Okay? So I want to talk, this week is JavaScript and jQuery. Next week is a catch-up JavaScript and jQuery. All right? because I'm guessing most of the people listening to me today will be at a somewhat level, alright? So I just want to talk about some of the things we've been doing with the JavaScript before, and then I don't have a lot of slides, but it's mostly to get you excited. I know how excited you get. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the homework that's coming up this week, and it's the drawing one. Okay? Oh man, did I make too many changes? That's okay. I won't draw right now. I'll just do this. I'm going to clear my log. Oops. Oh, wrong one. And this is something we talked about last week. And this is this idea of adding event listeners. The best thing you can do is have the JavaScript challenges from last week open into the site. Did you all have questions? Did you have questions? Okay. So right here, one of the things you can do is you can see I added a listener to my canvas was the ID for my canvas element. And so I went in here. This wasn't like we did it the first week. In the first week, I had like my canvas dot on change or my canvas dot submit. Right? These were things that we were doing to the event, but there wasn't that much information about them. I could tell if I had been checked or unchecked, but that was an attribute. So in this case, I have my canvas dot add event listener. And I'm saying listen for mouse move. The new part, the part we hadn't really done before, was this function E. Okay? So my question for you, let's see what we need. Be better than the undergrads, right? This function E, this is an anonymous function. We're not giving it a name, we're not recalling it later. Like, this function is only defined right in here. All right? What do you think E stands for? Why is that variable called E and not C or H or hippopotamus? Yes? Because it stands for event. What we're listening for is an actual event. So right here, when I do function E, the very next thing I did is I did a console.log. Okay? So now I'm going to go back over here to my code. In case anyone wonders, this is how you clear the console. If yours always clears, you can always click on preserve log so it stays there forever. Okay? So as I move nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Up, I just went into the canvas, saw the mouse move. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to scroll way up. So that E that we're talking about has a lot of attributes, a lot of them. All right, and we're going to ignore almost all of them at the beginning. But you can see there's something called offset X and offset Y. All right, page X, page Y. There's also an X and a Y. The reason we have all these different things is in this case, my canvas element is actually way up in the corner, right? It's pretty far up there. Not all the way. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to put it right. Actually, let's clear. My hands are too shaky to do this, but I'm going to try my best. There we go. As close to the corner as I can get. All right. And what you might notice is that offset X and Y is like -4 and -6 might not have been what you expected. X is 8 and 7. So and page X and page Y are 7. It's also keeping track of not just how far it is inside the canvas, it's also looking with respect to the whole page. So when you start drawing, you might find, that when you draw your mouse, I'm going to be a little bit obnoxiously off by here, right? But you might find that even though your mouse is here, it's drawing this circle here. You might be using offset, which is using page, etc. The other one to note is when you draw something, and basically any programming language, if you give it a position, that position is almost always the bounding box. It says, hey, I want you to draw a circle, and here's your bounding box. So if your mouse is here and it's drawing it right here, what property of a circle determines how big it is? Diameter or radius, right? Yep. And so radius is what we use. So you just have to do a little bit of math to figure out like, oh, what if it's way off? I'm doing something there. Okay. So that was the E, that's the event for mouse move. And this is a good thing because but I know a lot of you are doing 506, so you've done things in 506 before, and they make you write all this difficult code, and then later you're like, there was a library for that? Right? Like, you made me do that, even though there's something that I did already? JavaScript is trying to give you a bunch of tools already. So it's kind of like the libraries. So I'm going to do this now. I'm going to move my mouse back in here. I'm actually going to go here for a second. And you can see I also have another one for key down. All right. Now if you notice, this was on my canvas, and this is on window. Okay? So when I go back over here, if I hit the, actually go here, if I hit the R button, I get something, B, G. So I did R, B, Y, G. Why did I do R, B, Y, and G? Red, blue, yellow, green. Okay? So it's different. The initial event was a mouse event. Now we're in a keyboard event. So I can go in here and I'd be like, oh, okay, for B, oh, look, the code is called key B. There's also a key, there's also a key code. There's all these different pieces of information that are unique to the B key. I don't care which one you use, all right? As long as you're consistent. Some people might do an if on the key code. Some have been doing it on key. Key I wouldn't do because uppercase, lowercase, it makes a difference. But you can actually do code and there's key code. All right? The number one tell that people didn't exactly understand their homework is when they go back and forth between the two, when they couldn't get those to work. But again, if you think about it, if you have a function that says draw, then you can draw a circle. If you have a variable called color, as long as you go inside this function, you say, oh hey, I need the color to be blue or green or red. That's a series of if-else statements. Now, there are other options than key down. There's key up and there's key press. I would not recommend doing key press. And here's why. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to hit the up arrow up, arrow down. However, just going to close this so it goes away. When I do key press, I get my red, my blue, my green. I'm hitting the up arrow. It doesn't recognize it. Okay? I don't know why, but students keep not coding B, like for blue. Please do that right away. And the reason is because when I come and check people's code and help them debug, the first thing I do is press the B key. And then later I'm like, oh, they never actually coded that. So I think nothing's working at all, and I'm like, oh. So as we're going, I would definitely first draw, and then, hey, can I change this to blue? Okay. So when it comes time to sizing the canvas element, don't use CSS. This is a homework on JavaScript. If you use CSS, it actually distorts your drawing. All right, so make sure you use JavaScript to set the width and the height of the canvas element. And then the last one, the big thing is, in the code I gave you, there's a color picker down at the bottom. It's actually high up in the code, but there's a little color picker in there. That's where I would go and lean heavily on those 5 challenges. Because there is no events now to worry about. Don't worry about E's anymore. Go back. Don't worry about the letter E anymore. Go back and look at the code and be like, oh, okay. What were some of the attributes we used before? We had like selected, disabled, we had value. Reuse some of the, instead of printing out console.log E, how do you print out information like about an element itself? What is the keyword in JavaScript that refers to the element itself. It was self in Python. What is it in JavaScript? This. So instead of printing out E, I would print out this. And then I'd start, okay, what happens if I print out this dot X and this dot Y? Because unfortunately, it's not as helpful. Okay? All right, so the big one is use key down, don't use key press. The code is actually pretty short. Reserves the right to resize your window and keep drawing, and it should draw just fine. However, I'm not expecting your canvas element to resize until I hit refresh. So the reason we're doing JavaScript first is because I think once you get the hang of it, reading query document.query selector, and then we give it either a tag or an ID, helps. Query selector all, that's when we use like a class, something like that. Today, we're going to start learning about jQuery, and you have one goal in jQuery. As far as in this class, I know some people are super into it, some people not as much. The goal is that you can recreate those 5 JavaScript challenges using jQuery. All right, so let me talk about jQuery for a bit, and then we do have some hands-on coding stuff today. It's easier to get to if you've got the slides open. If not, I'll still give you a link. Okay? All right. Okay, so what is jQuery? jQuery is a JavaScript library. As we look at all these things we do in JavaScript all the time, like so for instance, in the challenges when we wanted things to hide and disappear, we would go in, we would get the element.style.display equals none. Element.style.display equals block. And people are like, wow, we do this a lot. All right? Let's write a library to do this for us. So, JavaScript or jQuery is better in that you can write really advanced code in a little tiny chunk. Right? It's powerful because it's done things for you. All right? However, I know that at least personally, when I started writing it, and even to this day a little bit with my vision issues, I don't think it's easy to read. I think when you first learn jQuery, trying to figure out, like, well, what's that $sign, and why are there so many curly brackets and parentheses together? I found it to be a little more overwhelming. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break it into little chunks. All right? So I'm actually going to run this for you right here, this code right here. And what I've got here is we start off, this is the same code as in the slide. This is the fancy classroom where I have a pointer. Use it. All right, so that $document.ready function. Remember when we started doing JavaScript, we would forget, we put our script at the top of the page, and then nothing would happen because the page hadn't been created yet? We're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So right here, this document.ready function says, hey, is the page fully loaded? Are we good to go? Don't start doing any of this until the page is fully loaded. All right? So it would have been similar to on JavaScript saying body on load equals and then running function. So that's the first line. It says, hey, as soon as the page is ready, I want to run this function. P. We've been doing this. Week 1, right? You know, P stands for the HTML tag. So if we have P, the tag, if we wanted to style in the CSS, all we had to use was P. And we could write the rule. Same thing here. This is saying, hey, find every P tag in the entire document. All right? And now, what I would like you to do, because we're jQuery and we're fast, add a listener to every single P, each one individually, that says click. So now, when we used to do, we would have to document.query, select all P, loop through all the P's, add a listener. You can say, hey, please add a listener to every one for us to click on. This means, hey, when you get clicked, hide. All right? Too many curly brackets, too many curly brackets. So now when I click on this, I'm going to click the middle one. All right. So in this example, I feel this is somewhat intimidating code to make paragraphs go away, right? But it's code that hopefully you'll be able to kind of, by the end of today, I'm hoping you can walk and be like, okay, she's telling me to pick all the p tags, listen for clicks, and this is what I should do when I get clicked on. Does that seem okay? Okay. So my job, I feel like, is to find all the ways in which you will potentially mess up and warn you. All right, so that's how we started off. But in order for it to work, in order for jQuery to work, you have to remember to link to the jQuery CDN, right, which is the Content Delivery Network. Right? You could go and download jQuery onto your, like the big jQuery file onto your computer. And then you would need to link to it, just like we linked to our style sheets. Like, oh, hey, use this jQuery. And then you need to remember to do that next time, and next time, and next time. Okay? Or, just like we did with Font Awesome, you can link to what's called their Content Delivery Network, CDN. And it says, hey, every time I link to you, please return the latest version of jQuery for me. So you never have to worry about being out of date, things like that. Right? CDN is a good word to know. It's a geeky word. It's going to be one of those, like, when you're in a geeky place, oh yeah, use CDN. Like, it's one of those words geeky people love to drop, and you're going to be part of the crowd if you know what a CDN is, okay? If you're going to any type of web development job interviews, know what a CDN is. Because they act like it's a big deal, and you're like, yeah, it's a link. Okay? All right. So, the other nice thing is that if people have already used like jQuery before, it gets cached. All right, so you don't have to keep going over it. All right. Here is the syntax. Okay? The syntax is $. $sign means I'm running jQuery now. So when we talked about JavaScript variables, one of the things I said is never name your variables with a $sign. Here's why. All right. So it says, oh, as soon as it sees this, it says, oh great, I've got some jQuery to do. Inside here is going to be your selector, or very similar to CSS. Very, very, very similar. Okay? And then here's the action we want to take. Okay? Action, I heard that before. All right? So, if we look at this now, we didn't. Other than, like, I know 80% of the class did the readings already, you went on to say how, you know all about jQuery, you're very bored right now. But for the few people who didn't get a chance to do the reading yet, I think at the beginning of class, this may have been very foreign, but does this make sense? Like, oh, here's some jQuery that says, hide me. If you do, at some point you're going to tell me to hide myself. Here would be, hide all of the p tags in the entire page. Hide all of them. Okay? This would be, hey, if anything is of the class test, find everything that has class equals test, hide it. Find the one thing that has the ID equals test. So if we were to rewrite this in JavaScript, it would be document.query selector all, whatever class you're looking for. It's just shorter, right? So the first thing is that it's just shorter. The second is this hide doesn't really exist in JavaScript, right? You need to actually write the .display, .style.display equals none. So people okay with this? Because I'm going to make you do it in a second. Yes?
Are we allowed to do this for our newspaper, for the campus?
Yeah. But we won't help you with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's too many people coming at us with like a million things. Yeah, yeah. Okay? All right, so don't tell the undergrads that though. It's just you all. All right, do not tell the undergrads that. All right, so one of the things I said is first you need to link to the CDN. Then you go in and you want to make sure you include this, or you can put this at the very end. All right, but the important thing is this prevents any jQuery code from running until you're ready. All right. So if you always get into the habit of that, instead of thinking, oh, I'm always going to put it at the bottom. No, just get in the habit of of adding that line. All right, so this is where I want you all to join me. So either click on this link, or I can tell you what to Google. I will write it over here. W3 schools, jQuery selectors. If you actually do a Google search for this, this page should show up. It'll look slightly different for you because I have the screen blown up really big. 1 second, I gotta get out of here so I can actually see things. All right, I am not seeing what you are seeing. Great. Shoot. Okay. Well, I'll figure that out later. You are probably seeing something that looks like this. Does that look about right? You two, I'm going to have you start walking around in a second. Is anyone still looking for this? Give it another second. You can either click through the link, or as I said, I did jQuery. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing, sorry. All right, so what I want you to do, once you find it, is let's scroll down here. Scroll, 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 almost all the way to the bottom, because we talked about all this stuff already. Here are some examples that are a little more asterisk means everything. We can use pseudo classes, like even and odd, first child, last child. What I'd like you to do is scroll, scroll, scroll. Right here, jQuery exercises is near the bottom of the page. All right, and I'm going to click on Start the Exercise. Because once I click on that, you will see that there are 6 exercises I would like you to do. I'm going to pause my watch for about 4 minutes, and I'd like you to just get through those 6 exercises. Oh, the panic on people's faces already. Let's do the first one together. What's the answer to the first one? Sure. If anyone can't find this, raise your hand and we'll come help you. Can you figure out how to get back to here? I cannot like escape. Oh, you just got to go. Wait. Okay. It was not gone. Okay. I'll go back to this. Did anybody finish all 6 yet? Yeah, we need a few more. One more time. So I'm going to rescind rescind my offer that you can do that homework in jQuery. And here's why. If you want to do it in jQuery, you need to talk to us first and tell us what, and show us some examples that you know JavaScript already. Alright, the reason for that homework was to show that you know JavaScript. Alright? So if you can demonstrate to me that you know JavaScript already, we will on a case-by-case basis, okay, it's being done in jQuery. Otherwise, a bunch of people decide to do it all in jQuery together, and if you don't know JavaScript, it's even harder to jump in. So I'm rescinding that offer, case by case. Shoot us an email to the entire instructor list and tell us what experience you already have with JavaScript. Okay? And then we'll go through it. Okay, how'd it go? Who realized that the big blue show answer button is right here, by the way? Anyone get that? Because I'm okay with that. Because these first few hopefully made sense. I would like to do all the selectors. ID of test is at hashtag test. The class test. What I think is the trickiest part of making this transition, because you're all pretty good at selectors right now, is when you start writing these, is it supposed to be in quotes or not supposed to be in quotes? You know, it's these little tiny things. All right, so I'm going to do test hide. All right. And then this was a tricky one. Although we used this selector in homework 4, I think, when we said make sure everything that is in focus has a box around it. Because by default, when things are in focus, they're supposed to have a box, but a lot of people overwrite it. So the everything operator, oops, did not mean to do that, is the asterisk. Quick note, for the asterisk, the specificity, ooh, I said it, right? Can't do it again. Of the asterisk is 0, all right? So if you do asterisk and then any type of formatting on it, any other rule will override it. Doesn't matter if it came first, last, it's got a specificity of 0. How about the last one? How did people do on the last one? Is this even the even odd? Oh, so this one's good. I like this one. All right, I'm just going to copy and paste it. What I like about this one is this is a very generic answer. This is, hey, this is how you can hide everything that has href in it at all. But you could also write something that says, hey, hide everything that has an href of that ends in .pdf. Not true. Yeah. Or that ends in a certain university, that ends in .edu, or ends in .gov. You can filter things that way, right? I only want to see the links that are internal. Big. I only want to see the links that are within U of M. Big. So, I feel like a lot of times when you finish learning some HTML and CSS, you don't really feel like you know how to code yet, because it's a scripting language. HTML and CSS they're scripting languages. But you can start to see how knowing things like selectors lets you dabble in things like this JavaScript and jQuery. All right, submit. And then the last one, that's the even or odd. You can do that one. All right. What I feel is missing from these exercises is actually seeing things disappear. So we're going to do that in a little bit. But that's what I want to talk to you about first is, can you narrow down the selectors? Because if you remember in the homeworks that are coming up, that was always our first step. What do we want to listen to? Was it the submit box? Was it the check box? What did we want to listen to? So you need to know how to write the selector for that. Okay. Sorry, my slides got a little funky. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do, right down here, go to the jQuery selectors tutorial. Okay. I'm going to scroll down here. Oh, sorry, I think we already did this one. I think it's the events I wanted to get to. Yeah, sorry, jQuery events. So what are events? What are some events we can do? All right, so we can listen for click. We can listen for double click, mouse enter and mouse leave. which one of the challenges from last week, the JavaScript 1 through 5, which one of the challenges did we have to listen for mouse events? Anyone remember which one that was? My dog was personally offended that you don't remember him. Remember when you moved the mouse around and my dog's face popped up? So, well, that was the 5th. JavaScript 5, yeah. But that was things like mouse enter and mouse leave. Okay. So when we're going to do events, the syntax is selector and then the event. So let's just scroll down here and you're going to get some practice with that. Sorry I have to scroll so far down, but, oh, real quick. What's focus? You should know this one. What's focus again? We've used it as in CSS, right? It's very similar to, it's like when you tab in, right? Something's in focus. So what's blur? Yeah, it's the state of going from being in focus to no longer in focus, all right? Because when we use CSS, as soon as we tabbed away, it was no longer in focus. Okay. But sometimes we need to know, oh, all right, you want me to change something bigger. So when something goes from focus to blur. So you're going to need that in challenge 5 as well. Right? It's not enough just to say, hey, do something that's on focus when my mouse left the little images or when I tab out of the images. We want to do something as well. So that's blur. Okay. Okay. So let's do 5 exercises here. Now that I've mistakenly shown you where the answer key is, I don't think it's going to be quite the incredible pedagogical experience it could have been, but try it. All right? If you're having any trouble, raise your hand. We're happy to take a look. Okay. How'd those go? Click, I assume, was pretty good? I'm actually going to go to, all right, so mouse pointer. So this one is actually mouse enter. Okay. This is one of the examples where the jQuery is a little bit different than the JavaScript, by the way. Just, you know, a lot of people when they do the JavaScript, they have like an on mouse over, on the side. Here we've got mouse enter, mouse enter. Okay? This is what makes jQuery frustrating when you're first trying to get to it, is that it's very, very, very similar to JavaScript, except when it isn't. All right? And so in the homework assignment I give you, I'm trying to find places where we can practice these little places where they're different. Okay? And then, did anyone else on number 5 type P and then write click? And what's the problem with this right here? We need the quotes. Okay? So, just as with JavaScript, what do we always want open when we're doing jQuery? We always want open. The console. You always want that console open, always, always. And I would also highly recommend, especially once your portfolio is done, if it's not already, is I like, when I'm doing JavaScript, I like to pin my console right to the side of my browser, so I don't have to keep looking for it. So when we start doing coding in class, I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay? All right. So go back here for a second. So one of the things you're just going to have to kind of work on is this idea of, hey, our syntax. Oops. Yeah. All right. There are events for this part, and there's also effects we can have. All right. So some of the things that we can do with jQuery, we can hide, we can show, we can toggle. Right? Some of you use the toggle in your JavaScript homework, which is relatively newer. You can do a toggle class. All right. A lot of times what happens is when people do something in jQuery, they will update JavaScript to be like, oh yeah, I guess we should have done that in the first place, right? I think. We can fade, we can animate. So in this case, you might say, hey, hide everything. I'm going to show you what the speed and this callback can do. Okay? Who here, anyone here thinking of taking Mark Newman's JavaScript class in the future? Right? There might be a few people. When we do, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. So I'm going to go here to speed. This is not a go along, so you can just kind of watch. All right. This might be, hopefully, a moment of teaching glory. But now that we've talked about jQuery for 20 minutes, all right, does this kind of make sense? Not every part of it. We're going to run through it. But clearly, we're just saying, hey, once the page goes, there's definitely something about this button and this paragraph. So the first couple examples, we were using, in all the examples they had in the earlier, they were using the word this, which meant once you click on me, oops, stupid quotes. Once you click on me, hide me. That gets to be boring pretty quickly because once you're hidden, there's nothing we can do with you anymore. All right? So instead, what we're saying is when I click on a button, add a button to all the listeners listening for a click. If a button gets clicked, hide all the paragraphs, not just one, but all the paragraphs. This 1000, that's how quickly we want you to hide it. So I'm going to click on hide. If I make this 100, what, faster? You can use fast. You can use slow. Okay. Now, I'm going to use slow. Instead of hide, let's pretend I do toggle. Okay, so run. Toggle actually pays attention to what it looks like right now and will change it for you. Right? You didn't have to write anything. It just automatically goes in like, oh, there's this element. Is it default blank or block? Is it default inline block? It'll turn it on and off. And just to make sure it's a little bit more clear, I want to do this. I'm going to copy this, paste it, and paste it. Okay? So now when I click on this hide button, what's going to happen? I click on this hide button right here in the middle. it hides all the paragraphs. Just so people know, it's going to hide all of them. Okay? And do you notice how it like knew that these were actually inline elements, so they ended up next to each other even. They're really gone. Okay? So, challenge one. We do this together, saying that challenge one, if you think about it, when I click on a submit, or when I click on a checkbox, what were we doing? We were toggling something. Have it show, we were writing out the if it's this, then show, if it's this, then hide. We weren't even saying show and hide, we had to like get the stop. Here, we're gonna be able to use that code just with different selectors. All right. This next slide is just for those of you who are going on to take any class with Mike Newman, or Mark Newman. 1 second. It is the higher powers of UMSI saying we need to teach them more about callback functions. I was like, oh, okay. People are really trying to hold on at this point in the semester. So for those of you who don't want to learn this, that's okay. You can like relax for 7 seconds. All right? So what I'm going to show you is I have 2 very similar things of code. It's the same idea that I want to hide things, but in both cases I've added an alert. In one case, the alert is go slow and then call this function. Right? In this case, it's the same code, only instead of putting the alert inside this callback function, it's just underneath it. Right? So what you would expect is I would assume, the paragraph to hide and then this alert to show up. Does that make sense? Hide the paragraph, alert should show up. So I'm going to hit hide. What happened first? The alert happened first. All right? So I'm going to hit OK. And then it got around to doing the next part. When you just give the code like this, boom, 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 you don't always know fully which one is going to be executed first. So now I'm going to go over here where they included what's called a callback function. We want you to do something, but instead of just putting the alert underneath, we're going to put it inside this function. So let's run hide again. It hides, and then it does the function. So it allows you to kind of control what you want to do. So the final homework, you all are going to write a weather app. All right, you got that. You're not going to. So you make a call to the weather app, and then when the information comes back, you're like a sunny picture or a cloudy picture, and things like that. I can show it to you when we're done today. And so you're going to need to think about, okay, what order is it going to come? It's not going to be a big deal at all in this class. But if you're going on to do other more advanced, like JavaScript programming, becoming comfortable with this idea of like, oh, in Python, all my code ran boom, 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 boom. When you start doing what's called event-driven programming, which is what we're doing here, there's different events, all these listeners are being asynchronous, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen when. And that's when you start using what's called these callback functions. So you can have more control. Okay? Will not be on a quiz, will not be on a homework. It's just something I include so that later when they say, did you cover callback functions? I say, yes, I did. Slide 17, it was there. Slide 10 now, things like that. Okay? All right. So why would you want to bother learning jQuery? Because you're lazy, right? There's a lot going on, and you would like to be able to just use things that other people have done already. When the portfolio used to be done at the end of the semester, we required JavaScript and jQuery, right? And people were limping it, all right? We're not requiring it for the portfolio anymore, but I did want to show you some of the things that jQuery is particularly good at. So for instance, it allows you in your HTML to let people drag things around, all right? A lot of people like the jQuery accordions. Let me make this smaller so you can actually see it. Typically by adding a class in and then adding a listener for those classes. We've done I like this one. I think I made one of these for you myself. Like a progress bar that can automatically be updated, all right? So I went in And I made a few examples. Let me go here. I can do that one. I don't even remember what this one does, so I'm going to open it. Oh, so I wrote something where all I have is a div, not much there, and I made it green, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, in my CSS. Gave it a height, and I made it green and things like that. And I said, hey, I'd like to animate it. And all this does, it says, hey, there's this button up here. If anyone clicks on the button, please animate this div. What do you mean by animating it? I'm saying move the left over 50% and toggle the width, which means make it 0, make it whatever the CSS says. Make it 0. So if I wanted to, if I wanted to jump bigger, I could say something like 150. Oops. And it goes faster. Not a lot of code. See, that's not a lot of code, but I don't think it's necessarily intuitive the first time you look at it, what's going on. These next ones are just for you. If I didn't add them to Canvas already, which I think I did forget, I'm going to add them right now. But, window, right here. Some other things people like to do. It's possible in CSS, yeah, this was for the 339 students, wake up, right? You can actually use CSS to do a typewriter effect. Some of the other things I'll have for you that you're more than welcome to try is I did the same thing with jQuery. You can do things like this. Actually, I'm going to do this one. Is anyone doing their actual their actual resume as a web page? Most people do it as a PDF, right? But have you seen people who do their resume as a website as well? Like they've got all the H2s and things like that. One of the things that people like to do is a lot of times they like to put in like how good they are at things. Like I'm 5-star HTML, I'm 4-star. And a lot of times they use progress bars. Not everything. But I'm going to reload this. And think of this as similar to the volume slider. When I reload this, normally a progress bar just shows however much you set, like 80% here. You can actually animate it going bigger or smaller. And it's not that much code. Right? I said, hey, grab it, find out what its value is, and kind of just, there's something called progress. Right? Little tiny things. I like this one, but let me make it look like a button so you'll all be more impressed. Give me 1 second. It doesn't look like a button right now. With, actually, never mind. Not gonna, yeah. 200. You're not gonna be impressed anyway, but I'm gonna feel better about it. Okay. Background blue. Okay, so let's take a look at this page. Anyone know what I did? It's empty. It's my worst fear. It happens every semester. I forgot to close my style tag. All right. Okay, it's still ugly, but anyway, that says print. All right, sorry, I tried to make it look a little more color white padding 4%. There, now it's going to look prettier. All right, slightly prettier. Okay, so when you print something on the internet, what do? How do you do it? If you need to print out something on the internet, file, print, right? So we can actually use jQuery to make your own print buttons if you want. So instead of having someone do there, you just do print, and up it pops. All right, was not a lot of code. If I go down here, it says, hey. The class was called print page, so that's how I found it. If someone clicks on this, hey, do the same thing as if someone had said to print the window. All right, very small. Very small. Does anyone have any idea what this return false does? Like, look closely at my A tag, which is what I use for the print page. Where was I supposed to go when I clicked on the print link? Supposed to go to cnn.com. Did I go to cnn.com? No. I printed. what kept me from going to CNN.com? That return false at the bottom. Okay? So there's a few things on there, but I do think the window.print is a kind of cool, quick one. The other one I like quite a bit is, I'm going to go right here. All I have here are 3 images. All right, I just have 3 images here, and I added a little bit of jQuery that said on error, this dot hide. So I have 3 links here, correct? 3 images. I'm going to open it up. There's only 2 because one of them was a bad link. So if you don't want all those ugly little things like the sunset pictures, that pop up when you, yes, you should go figure out what's wrong and fix it, right? But you can also just use the on error and say, oh, if something returns an error, hide it. Maybe Colleen won't notice. Last one. It's right here. This is just an animated scroll. So I have a whole bunch of content here. Body ID equals top. Then down at the very bottom, I'm like, oh, hey, when someone clicks on this link, I'd like to go up to the top. So you've seen this in some of the earlier homework. What this says is, oh, find this particular link. None of the other ones, just this one. If somebody clicks on it, then, hey, what I would like to do is find the HTML body and scroll all the way up to the top. And I'm going to go, here, I'll make it 1,000. So now I go down here, and if I click on go to top, it goes up there. If I made it, I think I was being a little obnoxious earlier because no one was listening to me. If we go here, we can all sit this one out, right? But do you see, jQuery can be incredibly powerful. You can do all these things with it. Or you can add your own time. You can be like, yeah, that's good. That's good. I think I'm just going to animate this button, right? But it's actually pretty cool. For a lot of you, a month ago, you're like, what? Where's the hover? You could only really do things with hover. Hover and focus. Those were big things. This is where the actual interactivity comes in. All right. I think that was it for these, which I am going to post if anyone just wants them. Slide-wise, okay. So the things I'm doing right here, as I mentioned, this is just like a taste, right? People who, I firmly believe anyone can code, but I do not believe everyone enjoys it, right? And I think that's how you know when you're going to be a coder, is when you get something to work and that yes, it worked, overshadows all the pain of everything it took to get there. Some people are like, great, it worked. All right, next. You can be a coder if you want to, but I do not recommend it. All right. So these things like jQuery and JavaScript, they're just kind of oh, all right. I learned HTML and CSS, but I don't really feel like I'm coding it all. This is where the coding comes in. But if you don't know the tags, it's harder to get started. If you don't know how the selectors work, it's harder to get started. It also isn't very easy to do jQuery if you don't know a little bit of programming like you've been doing in 506. How do you call a function? How do you concatenate strings together? Right? So you can style it and have the output be a little bit more. What does it mean to have variable and looping, particularly looping? Okay? But there's going to be some clunky inconsistencies. So let me show you 2 type things. I'm going to take you to challenge 1. Oop, okay. And we're going to talk about this more next week, so feel free to sit back or to watch it, things like that. I'm going to take a picture, I don't care, I don't have class done it. So in this one, what are we listening, just not the idea, what are we listening for here? Are we listening for the go to challenge 2 button, the submit button, or we don't have a submit button, the checkbox? What are we listening for? The checkbox. We want to listen for that checkbox. So I'm going to go over here. And, oh, I remembered to link to the CDN. It's good. All right. I'll show you what happens if I forget in a second. And I go down here. I'm like, all right, I'm listening for subscribe. And what's the thing I want to change when I click on subscribe is email field. Those are the two things that I'm going to be looking for. Right? Before we did the document.query selector, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to do that. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say, all right, what am I listening for? I need to set up my listener. I've got my $sign. I'm listening for subscribe. I have the hashtag because I know it's an ID. And I'm going to say click. All right. If somebody clicks on the subscribe button, what is it I want to do? Does anyone remember? What do I want to happen to the email field? I either want it to show up or go away. So with our newfound jQuery knowledge, what's the function in jQuery that'll make things, you can do hide and show, but how do you do even better than that? Toggle. Oh, here we go. What do I want to do? If somebody clicks on a subscribe button, the subscribe button, because it's a hashtag, please find the thing called email field and toggle it. What does that slow mean? Yeah, speed. So I think I'm already here. I'm going to click on it. All right. Could we do this in JavaScript? Absolutely. Do it here. Do we get to control the speed as easily in JavaScript? No, we do not. All right, that may have been a little slow. All right, but again, I don't have to do any if statements to see if something was checked or not checked. I get to just say toggle. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to turn on the console. And if your console is still popping off to its own window, which I think is really good for your portfolio, so you're not constantly in mobile view. But now that I'm working in jQuery, I like to switch it from being out on its own to being off to the side. Because otherwise you spend way too much time looking for it. You code something, you load the page, oh, I gotta find the console. Okay? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna close this because we're done with this. I'm gonna comment out as if I had forgotten to link to jQuery. Okay? And when I do this, I now get an error. You are going to see this error. So I just want to warn you, this is an error you're going to get. It's the $sign. All right? And it's simply $sign is not defined. Well, that's because it doesn't. The $sign means jQuery. And you didn't link to it, so it's going to give you that error. So you'll remember for challenge 1 and challenge 2, and you'll forget on challenge 3. You won't have your console window open, and then you'll fuss for like 20 minutes and then all right, so always have that console open. So number 1, let me put the code back up there. Wrong one. Back. What questions do people have about this writing? Anything? Do I need the 2000? Just act like Java. I don't do that. Are there far too many curly braces and parentheses? Yes. Okay. It's very important with your editor, just so you know, as you close, it highlights which one you open that it matches. Yes?
So we haven't used the document building function?
Right, so I didn't on this one just because I did put it, I was trying to make it look as much like we did in the challenge 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I didn't here. But remember how, oh wait, did I put it in a separate, because last year I didn't put them all in a separate file. So yes, we would, the way you did it, you will absolutely have it, the document out right now. Because when I did this last year, I actually put it inside the HTML, so you'll absolutely want that document out ready to on it. Okay, thank you for the question. So this one's gonna be a little less warm and cozy, all right? So this is challenge 2. And if you remember, with challenge 2, we basically said home.billing equals, or home.value equals billing.value. Like, it was very, one thing's got value equals another thing's got value. In JavaScript, value is an attribute, okay? In jQuery, it's actually a method. Alright, so I'm going to show you something, and not only am I going to show it to you, I'm going to copy and paste these lines of code and put it in Canvas. But this just isn't, I feel, quite as clean. Okay? Before, when we said home.value equals building.value, jQuery does it differently. Alright? We say you use val instead of value, and you actually pass it the value you want to give it. So val is actually, you can use it for both setting a new value and returning a value. It goes both ways. So if you notice, in this case on the right-hand side, it's returning the value. But right here on the leftish middle side, it's actually setting the value. So this homework isn't due, what is today, the 5th? I think this homework isn't due for 3 weeks. Right, because I made it a Tuesday so we could talk about it over Thanksgiving. But what that means is, I want to show you the slightly trickier, this part, so you don't wait 2 weeks and 6 days to start it. And I'm gonna copy and paste that and put it on Canvas today as well. Right? Just like with anything else, you're not gonna learn jQuery unless you practice it. Right? That's why I'm doing the homework on this. I'm keeping the homework pretty small. And I'm giving you all the answers to the 5 challenges for JavaScript. But as you can see, what I'm basically giving you is all the logic. You still need to do the syntax. So I'm giving you all the logic, you just need the syntax. So speaking of logic, all right, I know a lot of people are working on the portfolio still, but I wanted to talk about the homework that's due, the Canvas homework. Okay? We talked about it a little bit about the beginning of class. I would like everyone before I'm done, I'm not jQuery. I would like everyone before they leave here today to be able to draw a circle in the vicinity of the mouse. Right? And I'd like them to at least be able to change the color of one thing. Okay? It's not actually tricky, but it requires logic. What's supposed to happen with the up and down arrow? I don't remember what happens when you hit the up arrow and the down arrow. Yeah, you like lift the pen up and you put it down, is what I was saying. So I'll go run it right here for you. Okay. Open in browser. So I'm drawing. I hit the B for blue, Y for yellow, G for green. Sorry, I'm going to do this for a second. If I move too fast, it's bouncy. It's fine. Okay. Now I'm going to hit the up arrow. And now I'm going to hit the down arrow. Logically, this is not supposed, code logic is not supposed to be a super challenging issue. Let's think back to the 5 JavaScript challenges. And on one of them, you were not supposed to allow it to submit unless you had filled in something on the button, right? So we basically use some if statements. Right? Hey, if I'm allowed to do this, go ahead. If I'm not allowed, don't do it. I think this code for me is maybe 4 lines of code. I used a variable and I kept track of it. Some students were trying to remove listeners. Don't do that. Don't try to make it white. Don't try to change the color to white, because if you do, it would actually draw white or gray. You know, they were very carefully matching the background. And, it's supposed to, if you find yourself Googling it, you're doing it too hard. You need to just be like, oh wait, I'm going to draw. Oh wait, I shouldn't draw. All right, so something along that line. So that was the big one. And then the other suggestion I had, do you all remember? For when you click on here, all right, probably nothing's going to, I would have my console.log practice printing out what color I'm doing. Depending on your browser, sometimes it actually doesn't react until you close it up. That's okay. The other thing to know is I just used the color picker. I'm going to hit the space button. See how it annoyingly popped up the color picker again? When we It's just because that's where the focus is. I'm going to actually click somewhere, it doesn't matter where, just anywhere on this screen. I'm just going to click. Now when I hit the space button, it doesn't do that. So don't worry, people freak out about that. We will somehow press on the keyboard or on the screen. So don't worry about that. Okay? So portfolios can never die. They live with you forever. And a lot of people at this point have started asking questions like, I don't like how this looks. Well, okay. We really need to focus on the people who are having like really structural issues. I also, on the rubric we ask for certain things, and I understand you might not find that aesthetically pleasing, but you need to show me you can do it. And then as soon as we grade it, you can take like that header off or that footer off or whatever you want. But we will be going through the rubric. We'll be looking at the rubric and going, is this here? Boom. Is this not here? Etc. Okay? So for the rest of class today, as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on students who are having trouble getting the this Canvas to go. Okay, like having things show up, buttons and things like that. Portfolio questions we'll be leaving for discussion. Also, when are your discussion or your office hours this week? Thursday?
Tomorrow at 5.
And then also on Thursday, right? So I'm going to be doubling up with Singing on Thursdays, and I'm going to be doubling up with Kinging on Friday. So I will be at as much of their office hours as I can, like an hour and 45 minutes or like 45 minutes for yours. I've also been doubling up on all my 339. So to be honest, I'm not going to have office hours next Monday because I'll put in about 16 by the end of this week. So next Monday, just as a heads up, I won't be there. But that will be another time for you to get help on that. Yes?
Can you adjust the screen?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I'm going to make the screen smaller. It did not resize. I don't have you listening for there's actually a resize event. I'm not having you listen for that. So as you can see, even though it's supposed to be 80 by 80%, it is not. But as I draw, it still stays on. You might not know what I'm talking about, but you will. All right, because a lot of times when I make it smaller, all of a sudden it starts drawing up. Now, if I hit refresh, it should resize to the 80 by 80. This is where I was saying, don't use CSS to size this. Use JavaScript. To be perfectly honest, if you Google Canvas element width, it's going to be one of the first things that pops up. So, we are going to kind of, sorry, I'm just getting my sticky notes out. If I can find them all. We are going to, Singing, do you want to start in the back? You start in the front, and I'll kind of go from the middle. And our goal is to help people make sure that they can draw something and change a color. Okay? Just to help out, I'm going to leave this and this right here. Okay? So the rest of class will be purely for JavaScript questions. Okay?
You want us to make a different JavaScript file, or should we be putting on the same file?
It should begin, because it's very important. Oh, good question. Just so you know, make sure you can use mine, don't change the ID of anything. Like that color picker has an ID. We are expecting that ID to stay the same.
Well, I shouldn't use, like, my JavaScript file doesn't use that file.
For this, it'll be okay.
Save.
Yeah. I did mine all within, I did it all within one.
Okay.